Hi guys, welcome back to the Homespun Annie channel. So one of the things that I love from this last summer was having a clothesline, and I'd been wanting to have one for a while, and I finally put one up. And you do not have to have any fancy equipment. All you need is 2 trees and some rope, and you can put up a clothesline. And so I found the perfect spot overlooking the river, and I absolutely did not hang all of my laundry to dry, but I would just occasionally, hang up a load of towels or bedding, sometimes some baby clothes, and then also some of my own clothes that couldn't go in the dryer that had to be hung up to dry. And it's been lovely, and even into October, I have still been able to use it. And today it was beautiful, and so I hung up some of my kitchen towels to dry. At some point, I am going to have to take it down once, the weather really changes and it starts, getting below freezing. Then I'm not going to be able to use it, but for now, I still can. So I'm enjoying this beautiful sunshine we're having. It is definitely trending colder, and every night feels like it just gets a little bit colder, but it has been absolutely beautiful. So here I am going to attempt to make a loaf of sourdough, but shaped as a pumpkin. And I did this last year, and it turned out pretty good. And so I was just having some fun and decided I wanted to give it a try again. And this twine that I am using is not kitchen twine. I mean, it kind of is in that it's used for like making dishcloths, but I didn't have like the actual cooking twine, so I just used this because it really is basically the same thing. And all you do is you take some kitchen twine and you cut it into 4, is that 4? How many strips is that? Yeah, 4 strips. The hard part was getting the dough exactly centered onto the twine. And as you can see, I didn't get it perfect, but that's okay. And then you just tie it up. And I didn't tie it very tight, just because the dough is going to rise in the oven. I probably could have done it a little tighter, but as you'll see, I actually didn't need to. It turned out just fine. But see here, you can see it's just not quite centered. And this dough was very soft for some reason. Mine, usually I might be able to lift it up a little bit and adjust the twine, but for some reason, this dough was a little bit more sticky and was sticking to the parchment paper, so I couldn't maneuver it as well. But anyway, I just played around with it, and honestly, real pumpkins, there's really no perfect real pumpkin. I mean, maybe occasionally you can find a perfectly shaped real pumpkin, but really in real life, there are really no perfect pumpkins. So anyway, this is my imperfect little pumpkin loaf of sourdough. So here I'm just finishing tying it off, and then I'm going to dust it with some flour and do some scoring just like normal. And I did have my oven preheating as usual at 475 degrees, and my cast iron Dutch oven is preheating in the oven as well. And so here I'm just going to do some simple scoring down each little section. And I'm not even sure what you would call this kind of scoring. I think, I think it has the kind of the look of like a wheat stalk, but, it's just pretty. So I did this down each little section, and then I pulled the Dutch oven out of the oven and got the dough into there. and it came out pretty good. I was happy with how it came out. It rose some, which gave it that little pumpkin shape, and it's a little odd shaped pumpkin, but I think it still looked like a pumpkin. And so here I'm cutting the twine off, and it was still very hot at this point, and I probably should have just waited for it to cool completely. But yeah, all you do is just cut the twine off, and then I went outside and found a twig and to stick in the top as the stem, and it just made a very cute, imperfect, pumpkin shaped loaf of sourdough. And then to go with it, I wanted to make some soup. And now that the weather is getting cooler, it's definitely becoming soup weather. And one of my favorite things to make is soup. And I usually don't use a recipe. I just think of what kind of soup I want to make, and I think of the different flavors I want to layer into it, and I just go for it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love making soup so much, because it almost feels like a creative process for me. And so here I am making some butternut squash soup, and I preheated the oven to 375 degrees, and I'm going to roast the butternut squash until it's nice and soft. And I put on some salt and pepper, and I'm going to flip them back over so the open side is down at first. And then I'm going to put this in the oven, and it took, I want to say it took about 45 minutes for them to get to the softness that I was wanting. You just kind of have to keep checking it and just pierce it with a knife. It just kind of all depends. So, and then I decided to add some onion. And so I have this is a sweet onion, and I'm just dicing it up very small. And this is all going to end up getting blended anyway, so it doesn't have to be like perfect pieces or anything like that. And I'm just dicing up the onion, and I'm also going to add a couple cloves of garlic, but that won't be till later on. And here I'm checking the butternut squash, and I decided to go ahead and flip it over when it was close to being done, because I kind of wanted the open side to get a little brown and roasty as well, just for some more flavor. And so I added some avocado oil to a little Dutch oven and got my onions in there, and I wanted to caramelize them, but not necessarily a lot. I didn't want them to be like fully caramelized, but just starting to caramelize. And so I got the garlic minced up, and I'm not going to add the garlic until the onions are already done, because I don't want to actually brown the garlic. I just want to throw it in until you can smell it, which is literally just a few seconds, and then add in the broth for the soup, because I do not like browned garlic. I really want it just to be lightly cooked. And so here I'm just doing it into a fine mince, and here you can see the onions are kind of starting to caramelize, and I did end up having to add like maybe 2 teaspoons more of oil because it was just starting to get a little bit dry. And here I'm adding the garlic because the onions are right where I want them. And then I'm going to add in some water. And I added in 6 cups of water. Now, if I had had some homemade broth on hand, I would have just done 6 cups of homemade broth, but I didn't. And I love to use the Better Than Bouillon chicken base when I don't have homemade stock on hand. And this is really lovely. I get this one from Costco. You can get it at the grocery store too. And I think it just makes a really lovely broth when you don't have homemade broth. And so I just got that in there and it's simmering with the garlic and the onions. And then I pulled the butternut squash out. And really with this part, you might want to wait till they're a little bit cooler. And I just went for it as I pulled them out of the oven. So it was a little hot on my fingers, but I got it done. And so I'm just scooping out the meat, I guess you would call it, of the butternut squash and adding that to the soup. And you want to make sure, of course, that you don't get any of the skin of the butternut squash into the soup. And so here you can see it's very hot, and so I'm just struggling to not burn my fingers on it. So yeah, honestly, I think the next time I do this, because it was such a small butternut squash, I would probably do maybe 4 to 5 cups of water instead, just so the soup is a bit thicker. This soup was definitely not as thick as I was expecting it to be, but it was still totally fine, still absolutely delicious. But I think just depending on how much butternut squash you have and how thick you want your soup to be, you'll have to adjust the amount of chicken broth that you use. And you could absolutely use vegetable broth if you wanted to as well. And so here I am taking and straining out the pureed soup into another bowl. And I just really want it to be very, very smooth. You don't have to do this. You can literally just blend it and keep it like that, because honestly, it's still good, but I just love having it very, very smooth. And so I just strained it out into this bowl, and I used the wooden spoon just to kind of help it along. And then I checked it to make sure, once I was done, I checked the seasoning and it did need a little bit more salt. So I did end up adding more salt to it. And yeah, so you can see I'm checking it and adding some more salt. And then once you get it in your bowl, you can add a little drizzle of some heavy cream. And here is just a delightful bowl of fall soup with some pumpkin-shaped sourdough bread. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I will have the recipe for the butternut squash soup over on my blog, homesbanani.com. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share with someone else you think would enjoy it. And I will talk to you in the next video.